Jasmine Crockett reveals white supremacists are threatening her and coming to her office. Put it up for a mass. Courtesy of the commander-in-chief, by the way, on Thursday, an individual reportedly appeared at Representative Jasmine Crockett's office making, quote, white supremacist threats and hand gestures. Let's call those gang signs. Here's Crockett's statement, quote, today, an individual showed up to my office, my DC office, and made white supremacist threats and hand gestures. Everyone is safe. And I want to thank Capitol Police for their swift response. But let me be crystal clear. This cannot become the norm. We're living in a time where political violence is being fueled from the very top. When the President of the United States spreads hate and lies, and then he targets his political opponents when he openly calls for the death of sitting members of Congress, he is putting a literal target on our backs. The president should be committed to unity, not more division. She goes on to say, quote, some folks have questioned why I need security. This is why. Every time I speak truth, stand up for my constituents, or call out corruption, the threats get louder and more dangerous. I will not be intimidated. I will not be silenced. I will continue to show up for the people of Texas' 30th Congressional District. But we cannot pretend that this is normal. When leaders promote hate, hate shows up sometimes right at our door. So Crockett's statement comes shortly after Donald Trump said nearly half a dozen Democratic lawmakers should be punished by death. He called it seditious behavior on social media in response to a video that encourages the military to follow the law. And by encouraging the military to follow the law, these Democrats reminded them that they have a duty, an obligation, not a choice, not an option, not a consideration, but a duty and obligation to refuse illegal orders. That's it. Sometimes people have to be reminded of the law, especially when you have a lawless individual in charge of the outfit. And because they were reminded of the law, the person who was lawless decided to threaten those elected representatives with death, giving you a clear indication to his, illegal stance. There's more. Some of those Democratic lawmakers would talk about the threats they've received since Trump's, threat. Here it is.
As you can imagine, we've gotten hundreds and hundreds, if not closer to 1,000, tough threats and messages, and had to get Capitol Police security. And, it's just it's like turning on a light switch. Mm-hmm. And, but I'm not gonna be dismayed or dissuaded from standing up for the Constitution just because he threatens us.
We are in uncharted waters. I mean, I never expected, after serving 25 years in the Navy, flying combat missions over Iraq and Kuwait, flying the space shuttle, that now I've got to worry about my personal safety and that of my wife, Gabby Giffords, who was already nearly assassinated because of something the president said.
Of course, I'm very worried about this office and my team and my family, but I think I'm just continuing continually stunned by the fact that I'm worried about it is because the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, has called for my death. And that's something that should just be chilling for everybody. And everybody should be worried about their safety in this nation when the president can wield that sort of a statement.
Yes, there is concern. But it seems you need to be reminded that you serve in a co-equal branch of government. And if the executive branch decides to test their power, your response as a co-equal branch is to let them know that test will be met with the same vigor that it showed up with. So here we are. Donald Trump has called for the killing of politicians. Let's go back to the Supreme Court ruling that basically said, without an impeachment, he can do whatever he chooses to do. What do you think he's doing? Now, at what point is impeachment back on the table in a serious way? And to the Republicans, you're foolish if you think he's only turning on Democrats. He just called your beloved leader, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a traitor because she talked about his good buddy who passed, Epstein. You don't think he's coming for you? There's more. Response from Republicans. A White House press secretary, obviously they are tying themselves in knots at the White House, trying to spin this. And House Speaker Mike Johnson, defended Trump's comments and focused on what the Democrats in the video said. That's the real offense. Levitt said lawmakers should be, quote, held accountable for encouraging service members to, quote, defy the chain of command. Not what they said. Not what they said. Quote, what I'm saying, what I will say unequivocally, is that was a wildly inappropriate thing for so-called leaders in Congress to do, to encourage young troops to disobey orders, Johnson said. Professional anglers. All right, that's all. They see the truth. They figure out how to angle it back to you and distort it. Professional anglers. They duck, dodge, deny, deflect anything that's true, real, authentic, and genuine. So understand what's really happening. Understand what's really happening. We're in a position now where Donald Trump has committed multiple impeachable offenses. We're not talking about anything that will have ambiguity. As a matter of fact, it would be hard-pressed for the presiding judge, that would be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, to look at a statement that calls for the killing of other politicians and not have his own conscience shocked. All right. Senator, is there a reason why Democrats and possibly the handful of Republicans that would support them, why do we not see a serious effort for impeachment, at least now?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Doc. I don't know if it's fear or they just believe that they don't have the juice. They have not been comporting themselves, in my opinion, since President Donald J. Trump has been sworn in the second time. When I say they, I mean the Congress has abdicated its authority through the executive branch from his swearing in all the way to this moment. So that is a very good question, Doc, as to why this Congress would not execute on impeachment of the president. But even before that, this president has been the victim of 2 assassination attempts. I don't know if I'm missing one, Doc, but people have tried to kill this man. He, of all people, should understand what that feels like, how rotten that is. It is almost unfathomable that he then would still continue to use violent like rhetoric, knowing that there are certain people in this country and in the world who are wired to respond in the way that this man is talking about. I remember when he told him, stand back, stand by, stand by, stand back. You know,
Right.
it was the same thing for January 6th. I believe it was in June, June 14, 2025, where two Minnesota state legislators were assassinated. That was just like yesterday on the continuum. So why this president would play games? He's playing with fire right now, and it's wrong. Whether Representative Jasmine Crockett or anybody else that is serving in that Congress should not have to fear for their lives on a regular basis, and should not, and the lives of their staffs and the lives of their significant others and their family members while they're trying to serve this community. Now, I can debate whether or not they actually serve in the community, but that's not what we're talking about right now, Doc. It is wrong. And then this press secretary, man, it's a low bar, boy. I
Yeah.
tell you. But you know what, Doc, I take it back. Because if you want to keep the job, you got to go out there and do exactly what she was doing, because she trying to keep that job. But I don't know if I could live with myself certain of these things that these press secretaries have had to do, not just in the Trump administration, but in other administrations with a straight face. You coming out here talking this stuff. It is shameful. So it is going to take the American people, because obviously, heretofore, President Donald J. Trump has not shown that he has a shame gene. And that is the problem. He can't be shamed.
And he hires people who are significantly underqualified for the position. He gives them that. And so he becomes their proxy to power. It's a
That's
manipulation
right.
from go. He becomes their
That's
proxy
it.
to power. They will never have this kind of prestige, power, and perhaps even money and access without him.
That's
All
right.
We'll bring you updates as they come.